What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be trying to tackle the very controversial topic of skill-based hit reg. This is a thing that's been going around the community for a long time. A lot of popular streamers have been claiming that this is a real thing, and I'm going to go through and talk about all the different things I think could affect this that might be causing this to feel like it's a real thing, even though my personal belief is that there's almost no chance it's a real thing. I think it's one of the things I'm going to talk about in this video. It's a very, very difficult thing to directly test, but let me know in the comments if you want me to attempt directly testing this. Again, it'll be next to impossible to really do this, but what I would do is I would borrow people's accounts. So I'd get someone who had like a 5.5 KD and someone who had a 0.5 KD. I would try to get in the same match and do a bunch of different tests. But yeah, drop a comment if you want to see me try to do that. It's going to be really difficult, but might be worth looking into if you guys aren't sold based on everything I covered in this video. But as always, if you guys like the content, consider dropping a like and a comment on the video. If you're new here and you want to see more really in-depth, detailed Call of Duty content, be sure to subscribe or you won't see notifications for that information. But let's jump into it and we will talk about all the different things that I think can affect hit reg in Warzone. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is just the general complexity of doing hit registration with networking issues. So everybody in the match has different pings. So what ping is how long it takes your information, your packets of information about what you're doing on your PC to get to the server and then to get back to you. So you have a certain ping number, someone else could have 5 times your ping. The server is getting all this information all at once, and the Warzone servers are only 24 hertz tick rate, which means that they're only updating their information on the main hub for the whole Warzone server at 24 times per second. Whereas on your screen, if you're playing on console, you're either playing on 60 FPS or 120 FPS. If you're playing on PC, you can go all the way up to 200, 240 FPS. So you're seeing dramatically more information than the server can even like calculate and comprehend. It's only seeing effectively like 24 FPS of information. So all of these things combined, like lag compensation. Imagine you get in a fight with somebody who has 200 milliseconds of ping, and you have 20. If you both in real life shoot at the exact same time, the server has to interpret that information with your information getting there 180 milliseconds before the other person's information gets there, and then try to compensate for that lag and figure out what happens and figure out who wins the gunfight in real time, only ticking 24 times per second. So it's an extremely complicated thing to work lag compensation in, and hit registration and servers and packet loss. There can be packet loss too, and the game shows a packet loss symbol, but that's only if you go over a certain threshold of packet loss. What packet loss is basically, I mentioned the packets early on, but you're sending the packets to the server of information as to what's happening on your machine. Those packets can get lost due to 1,000 different reasons, any sort of router issues or ISP issues, or there's so many different things that can cause that, and you only see the little symbol in game a fraction of the time that it's actually happening. So if you see somebody shooting someone and bullets literally aren't registering, that could simply be packet loss that you can't see. That's why this is such a hard thing to test. And I do feel like the servers have maybe taken a bit of a hit since Caldera released. I feel like specifically Rebirth, almost every Rebirth match I get in has packet loss nowadays, and I'm jumping around. Caldera feels about the same to me, but these are the kind of things that you just will never be able to really know for sure if it's a packet loss issue or a networking issue or any of those things compared to actually something like skill-based hit reg. And if you think about it, a really good player is going to know when his bullets should be hitting, his or her bullets should be hitting, as compared to a bad player. So that's why you see so many good players complaining about this, because they feel these server issues that other people don't feel because other people aren't so in tune to whether or not their bullets should be hitting. So there's just 1,000 different factors that go into this stuff that people just don't even understand. Like I know a little bit about networking, and I know that I know like 1% of what there is to know and how complicated it is. So I think a lot of the stuff we're seeing really could be just general network issues. Another thing that can cause hit reg issues, or what feels like hit reg issues, would be misaligned optics. So for example, we know the 3-line, I haven't covered this before, but I've seen some testing from a friend. The 3-line definitely does not shoot exactly where the crosshair is on any reticle for any optic. So that's just a bug. That's just something they'll have to fix. It's not a dramatic thing, but even being off by like an inch or two can make an inch or two at like 15 meters can make hit reg feel terrible, because the size of a headshot is only probably like 7 inches across or so. So being 1 inch off is a huge percentage of the shots that should have hit that wouldn't hit with that reticle that's not correct. All right, so the reason I started making this video today was because I discovered what's in this video that I'm about to show you. I was testing all the new damage profiles for all the Vanguard guns, cranking through all of them. They should be out in the next day or two, by the way. We've almost finished all of them at this point. But anyway, I noticed that sometimes the bullet didn't seem to be going where the reticle was. And first of all, that might sound like ADS bloom or ADS spread, whichever you call it. And I was pretty sure that wasn't the case because I've retested bloom multiple times and there's no bloom anymore. So it was something else going on. And the only other thing it could be was that the sway wasn't matching visually what the ADS sway was actually doing on the gun. So that's what this test here was supposed to show. Basically, I went in and I shot a full magazine with the Automaton 4X, and I looked to see how big the pattern was for all the shots based on the sway of the reticle. And you should be able to see here that after I get done shooting all these, the reticle's swaying outside the bounds of where the bullet actually went. So it's almost like the sway visually was magnified in comparison to what the actual sway was doing for the bullet spread. So if you look at this, you'll see as soon as I get done shooting here, I have 2 shots left. It's easier to see, but the reticle is swaying way outside where the square of bullets actually were from the sway. And this is pretty significant. This was like 2 or 3 inches outside where it should have been going, compared to what you would expect. So that would 100% make it feel like you were missing shots that you shouldn't miss. I will say I tested this with a bunch of the popular optics like the 3X and the just a red dot and different things like that. And the 4X specifically is very messed up compared to the rest. The rest seemed very close to correct, if not perfectly correct. I thought I had found the smoking gun. I thought this was what the problem was that people were feeling. But turns out that it was really only for the 4X. Another reason that could potentially make you feel like you should be hitting shots but weren't is that maybe during fully automatic fire, the reticle's bouncing around, and where the reticle is right when you actually fire and pull the trigger, not when you pull the trigger, but when the next bullet actually fires, maybe somehow it gets misaligned during all of that bounciness. So I went in and did a really, really good test. These are interesting results that I kind of want to expand on and look more into. But basically, I recorded my screen at 960 frames per second, and I was hitting 240 frames per second in game with a 240 hertz monitor. And I went frame by frame and looked at the exact frame where it looked like the bullet was firing on my screen based on the reticle movement. You can see it was pretty smooth. It would start to slow down and then it would jump right when the bullet was fired. And I went in and I marked on this target compared to where the real bullet hole was, where it looked like the bullet was going to go. So these red dots are where it looked like the bullet was going to go. And then the actual bullet hole obviously is where the bullet actually went. And you can see that consistently it was about, this is at like 15 meters, 10 or 15 meters, consistently probably 2 or 3 inches up and to the left of where it looked like the bullet should have been going is where the bullet actually hit. Sorry, the bullet hit 2 inches down to the right of where the bullet looked like it was actually going to go. So this is a big deal as well. I need to check other optics. I only did this with the 3X on the Automaton. Obviously, different optics, different guns. Again, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me dive into this way deeper, because this is something that I could test with a bunch of different stuff and see if this is happening everywhere and how much this actually affects visually at what our eyes perceive as what is happening compared to what's really happening. And last up, I think something that people forget a lot is that the bullet velocity of the Vanguard weapons in general is much, much slower than that of the both the Modern Warfare and the Black Ops Cold War weapons. So I went in and measured all the numbers. And if you think about the builds, the Meta MP40 that people are using right now has incendiary rounds, and it uses the 7.62 magazine, which both of those hurt your bullet velocity. But if you think about like what the Meta OTS was, which was pretty much the best SMG by a mile for a long time, and pretty much shared the same attachments as most of the other SMGs that were being used, that had monolithic suppressor, agency suppressor, and task force barrel. Both of those increased your bullet velocity, and those guns all had higher base bullet velocities than these new Vanguard guns do. I don't have the base bullet velocities measured for Vanguard yet because I've been just plowing through all of the other things that I had to get done that were more important. I'll be doing that very soon, but they do have lower base bullet velocities in general than the previous games did. So this leads to a huge difference when you measure these bullet velocities at range. So I got 216 meters per second for the Meta MP40 and 720 meters per second for the Meta OTS. But I wanted to talk about what that actually means in terms of how far you have to lead your target. So I went and calculated if their target's 20 meters away, and then if they're sprinting versus if they're ADS that use strafing, approximate how much you have to lead them to hit a headshot, or just a comparison in that regard. So you can see if the target's sprinting and they're 20 meters away with the Meta MP40 and they're running perpendicular to you, you have to lead by 30 centimeters or 11 inches. So that's what this block here is. So that is approximately a lead head width of lead at 20 meters if they're running sideways. So you have to lead them by that much to hit a headshot, which is just crazy. And then if they're strafing, it's the second block here is the meta MP40 also. You can see you basically have to lead a whole head size to hit a headshot there with the MP40, and that's when they're ADS strafing. Like, that's not even quick movement. That's how slow this bullet velocity is, that you still have to lead your target a ton, even at close ranges, even when they're not moving very fast. And that's something we didn't have to do before with the OTS. That's what the other bracket is here on these charts, is how far you'd have to lead with the OTS. You barely have to lead at all with the OTS when they're ADS strafing, and if they're sprinting even, it's only half of a head that you have to lead them by. So this leads to probably a lot of situations where, especially because so many people were used to the old weapons, it really feels like shots should be hitting that are not hitting. And then I did the same thing for ARs. So I don't know what the meta Cooper is, but this is with the lengthened attachment, so that's an extra 30% bullet velocity. And then I like to use the 60 round mag. I think it's 9 mil. It's like the default ammunition, or it's the small caliber ammunition, so that actually hurts your bullet velocity a little bit. If you used a mag that increased it, you might be able to get up close to like 1,000 meters per second. But for me, that low recoil is really nice, so I generally run that low caliber mag on the Cooper. And that tested at 725 meters per second versus the previous meta, the EM2, was 1,270 meters per second. So again, that's a dramatic increase. Same calculations here. This is the same bracket idea. So the first bracket is how far you'd have to lead. If you shoot somewhere in that range of that first bracket, you would hit the headshot with the EM2 at 50 meters if they were sprinting sideways. And then with the Cooper, you'd have to lead by over a whole head to actually hit that shot. So there's just a dramatic difference in bullet velocity that I think people just don't really know about yet, with the difference between Vanguard and the older weapons. That's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to go through and talk about all the things that can make it feel like your shots should be hitting but aren't. I think the big ones probably are bullet velocity and server issues. I think those are probably two of the biggest factors in people missing shots that they feel like they should be hitting. But overall, I don't think skill-based hit reg is a thing. I've watched all the clips. I think there's enough things that can cause shots to miss naturally in a way that would normally happen without some sort of shady behind the scenes thing, skill-based hit reg. And I think you'd see, if it was actually happening, you would be seeing these high KD players having their KDs drop, and that's just not really happening. You'd see low KD players KDs shooting up. You'd see some sort of balancing effect if this was actually a real thing that was happening, and we're just not seeing that. I mean, everybody's, if you're Breadman, you have a 6.5, 7 KD, you're still playing at a 6.5 or a 7 KD. Yeah, there might be one situation in a day or two situations in a day where it feels like you should have downed somebody, but you didn't. And I think that's probably just due to one of the things I listed in this video. But if you guys want to see me dive even deeper into this, let me know in the comments. I can do that. I can get multiple accounts and test them against each other in live matches. It'll be really difficult and time consuming. So you need to weigh that as far as what you want me to be working on, if you want the website to be amazing, if you want me to make other videos, or if you want me to focus on this skill-based hit reg that I'm 98% sure is not a real thing. But that's all I wanted to cover in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.